let's talk about Celsius. Remember them, the bankrupt crypto lender Celsius? We have a little update here in that case. The plan here is to convert all the other altcoins to Bitcoin or Ethereum before distributing them to various creditors. This is interesting, I think, because there is a little bit of subtext here that at least this court sees Ethereum, or Ether, I should say, the native asset of the Ethereum blockchain, as a non-security, as a commodity. That's been sort of hotly contested of late, with Gary Gensler famously dodging the question in congressional testimony when asked if Ether was a security, given his recent comments that pretty much everything except for Bitcoin was a security in the digital asset market. So that's a little bit of the subtext, but certainly potentially some good news, I think, for Celsius creditors. I'll throw this to Adam for his thoughts. What do you make of this story?
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense from an execution standpoint, right? Like there's nothing that's more difficult than trying to get somebody to offload 100 different types of tokens that all use a different blockchain and all require a different wallet. A lot of people who are buying assets, again, like don't even really maintain wallets for a lot of this stuff, and they use exchanges as a proxy. Now, obviously Celsius was a little bit different, but not substantially different. So from a simplicity standpoint, it makes sense. From a market dynamic standpoint, I think it represents some troubled times for some of, especially the smaller tokens that they're holding, that will get liquidated. And I'm not even really sure it's in the best interest of the kind of end users who are going to be getting some of their capital back as a result of that. Because again, like a lot of times getting liquidated out, there's taxation, there's tax consequences. Like there's just, it makes it a little bit complicated. So I'm cognizant of that, but I think that it does make sense. And it definitely, again, is an improvement relative to what we've seen in the past, where, you've got, Mt. Gox in Japan, 2013 failure, still finding its way to unwind. And in some ways that's great. Again, like the keeping your crypto as like somebody who's in a coma, that's always a good strategy. But at the same time, the lack of that liquidity can really kind of hurt. So I think this is threading the needle, and it's one of the less dumb things we've seen in the Celsius saga to date. Will?
Yeah, I take a markets angle on this story. To me, the thing that popped out is the fact that Ethereum is being used as a liquidation asset here. All these other altcoins are just going to starve because the liquidity is going to be driving out of them, depending on what is in the Celsius filings as of now, and I'm not familiar with those, but all those tokens are going to be dumped onto the market, moved into BTC or ETH, and that is bullish for both BTC and ETH. I don't know how much pressure is going to put on both those coins, but the fact that we have this big holding of altcoins moving into BTC and ETH means that those two assets as denominators and trading pairs are going to strengthen, right? And that's going to drive down altcoin markets. And we typically see this during bear markets, right? Where altcoin season is far in the rearview mirror. A lot of these coins die. They have no liquidity. People forget about them, move on to different projects. But typically one or two survive and they do well. Historically, that's been Bitcoin. But over the last 3 years, Ethereum has really popped up and been a coin that alongside Bitcoin has been able to withstand any pressures from a bear market. Comparing 2018 and 2022, you can see that there's been a big difference in people's purview of what Ethereum is. In 2018, Ethereum fell by over 90% during that rough time, right? The coin was close to over $1,000, if not over $1,000 during the top of that market. And then it dropped all the way down to $80. This last time around, it went as high as 4,000, and I think it dropped as low as about $800, but it's rebounded to about 1,500 and held its position pretty well. I think that's because, Zach, not only are the legal rules seeing it as a commodity, but also traders, investors are seeing it as something else than all these other altcoins that are out there. Jen?
Well, you kind of covered the question I was going to ask. I was going to ask Adam, what this means for altcoin markets starting July 1st if all of these coins are getting sold back into the market. But you answered me, so I'm going to pass it over to Zach.
I don't know. Hopefully this provides closure pretty soon to Celsius's creditors. We saw on that little screen grab that at one point, 1.7 million customers called Celsius their home for crypto, which, ouch, sorry guys. So hopefully a bit of closure for them. Again, I think the tax implications that Adam brings up about, having these assets being forced liquidated into, arguably more sound assets, but still you take that hit when you're getting those funds back out. But it is interesting to see kind of the bankruptcy process wind its merry way, right? This is something that we're going to see for a number of firms, and Celsius kind of seems to be the one that's actually progressing in the most sane fashion. So this is an update for folks. Check it out. July 1, they're talking with the SEC, perhaps a bit more clarity on whether ETH is indeed a commodity in their eyes following the release of the Hinman documents and more.